The alternative method of training that I will be discussing in this presentation is body weight training. Body weight training is a pretty general term, so it covers a fairly large range of training exercises. But the simplest definition of body weight training is really any exercise that involves using the body as the primary means of resistance when training. So, as you can see, this push-up, you are actually pushing against your body weight as the resistance. So this basically involves manipulating the body itself in such a way that in these exercises, your body is acting as a resistance and you're working against gravity and ground reaction forces. Really, any type of exercise that relies on the body as the primary resistance could be considered a form of body weight training. So these are just some examples of more specific forms of exercise that could fall under body weight training. You have calisthenics, which would probably be considered the most traditional form of body weight training. And that would include exercises such as your typical push-ups and sit-ups. You could also include jump training. And so this is basically the types of plyometric type exercises that we talked about in class, with an emphasis more on developing quick and explosive power. So with body weight training, this would include things such as high intensity interval training with exercises like jump squats or split squat jumps. While calisthenics and jump training would be higher intensity exercises, you could also include exercises like yoga, which emphasize the mind-body connection, as well as Pilates, which emphasizes mind-body connection in addition to core strength, balance, and flexibility. So lower intensity type exercises could also be considered types of body weight training as well. So as you can see, it does cover a fairly large range of different types of exercise. The idea behind body weight training is similar to that of traditional resistance training, but you're obviously using just the weight of your body as the primary resistance rather than that of weights. However, body weight training also promotes adaptations that are related to cardiovascular capacity. Additionally, while traditional resistance training aims mostly to promote strength gains, the goals related to body weight training involve building a base of balance, core strength, mobility, and stability. So as you can see with this lunge here, you are obviously working the muscles, major muscles of the lower body, but it's also involving an element of core strength and balance in order to maintain the correct form throughout the movement. So a body weight training program should ideally incorporate all of the major muscle groups. As you can see, again, you are incorporating several major muscle groups, your quadriceps, your glutes, all in this one movement. So involving more muscles increases the total number of muscle fibers that are stimulated during the movement. So this can contribute to adaptations such as post-activation potentiation, which could be achieved through higher intensity exercises primarily that would lead to forced recruitment of powerful fast twitch fibers. This could also be used in conjunction with traditional resistance training, as the ability to recruit those fast twitch fibers could augment training by allowing for greater force production. This could also be achieved through adaptations like motor unit synchronization. Additionally, incorporating multiple muscle groups diffuses a larger oxygen demand across the entire body, as opposed to the smaller overall demand that would be produced by focusing on a more concentrated area. So this would be where the cardiovascular adaptations would come in, such as an improvement in VO2 max. Some advantages of body weight training include that these exercises can be uniquely tailored to the individual. So a training program could include exercises that more specifically account for an individual's movement capabilities relating to physical characteristics, such as limb length or body weight. Additionally, bodyweight training promotes elements of core stability and joint stabilization relative to an individual's body weight. This could also be beneficial in improving form and technique when performing other types of resistance training, or even just contribute to general fitness. Bodyweight training also frequently includes what are referred to as closed chain exercises. Closed chain exercises basically describe exercises that involve joint movement away from or toward an anchored body part, and usually incorporate movements of multiple joints. An example would be the squat, as shown here. As you can see, the feet are remaining in contact with the ground throughout the movement of the body downward. So this here would be considered a closed chain type of exercise. These types of exercises are considered advantageous more in terms of general health, as these tend to be more functional movements. So a squat simulates the motion of sitting in a chair. This might be particularly beneficial in populations within which you would want to promote greater functional capacity, such as in an elderly population, which I'll actually talk a little bit more about later. As I mentioned, bodyweight training does target multiple muscle groups, so you're getting almost more of a holistic type of exercise. There has actually been evidence in the literature that bodyweight training does correlate with improvements in explosive strength improvements in explosive strength of the lower limbs, which was seen in a study that tested the effects of mostly high-intensity type bodyweight exercises, such as interval training. This study also saw improvements in core strength and aerobic capacity, and ultimately concluded that bodyweight training can be an effective means of enhancing general fitness, since it appeared to improve muscular endurance as well as physical capacity. It should be noted, though, that these improvements correlated specifically with higher intensity plyometric type exercises. One disadvantage of bodyweight training is that it has not been shown to produce significant gains in what is known as absolute strength. Absolute strength is defined as the ability of an individual to move a given absolute load. So this would be the type of strength that people looking to achieve strength gains with traditional resistance training might be going for. Bodyweight training instead develops what is known as relative strength, which is the ability of an individual to move a load as a certain percentage of their body weight. Additionally, bodyweight training has been described as being too easy for the experienced and too hard for the novice. So what that means is that it can be kind of difficult to determine where exactly bodyweight training fits into a training program, since a lot of the movements might be perceived as being too easy for someone that would be considered to be at an advanced training level, but might be too challenging for someone at a beginning level, since proper form is especially important to get the most out of bodyweight training, because your body itself is acting as the resistance. So for example, a push-up may seem too easy for a trained individual that can bench press nearly twice his body weight. However, this could potentially be addressed by adjusting the number of reps, because if enough reps are performed, push-ups could become a challenge for even a highly trained individual, since they require strength to be drawn from the core rather than from the bench. Overall, though, bodyweight training by itself would not be recommended for individuals with a training goal of increasing their absolute strength, since this would need to be accomplished through increased loading or training volume. While bodyweight training could be used in conjunction with other methods such as traditional resistance training, I wanted to focus on a population that could potentially benefit from bodyweight training as more of a standalone training method. Exercise is becoming an increasingly common method of treating sarcopenia in elderly individuals, which describes age-related loss of muscle mass and strength. This is important to address, since sarcopenia may be associated with risks such as falls and fractures, physical disability, and loss of independence. There has been evidence to support benefits from traditional resistance training in this population, but larger mechanical loads are also associated with risks of greater orthopedic injury in this specific population. So, as a result, resistance training in this population often requires things like specialized equipment and exercise facilities, as well as supervised instruction. And that may not always be practical. So, the possible solution would be bodyweight training, which has been shown to improve both functional abilities as well as metabolic profiles in the elderly population. So, this leads me to the specific training program that I wanted to discuss. This training program was used for a study of the effects of bodyweight training on leg muscle function in the elderly that was conducted in 2009. But I thought this would be a good example of how a standalone bodyweight training program could be used in a population that could benefit from it. This study included 27 untrained elderly individuals that participated in this specific bodyweight training program over a period of 10 months. This program primarily targeted the lower body. The specific exercises and number of repetitions and sets are included in this table. The program was implemented twice per month over the 10-month period, and the subjects were told to additionally perform the same exercises at home once a week. This program included a 2 to 5 minute rest period between training sets, as well as each set of reps. The program also included upper body strength exercises, as well as a warm-up and cool-down that included stretching exercises, though the specifics were not discussed in this study. The effectiveness of this program was analyzed by determining changes in maximum force, velocity, and power output of the lower limb muscles that was measured pre- and post-training. Researchers observed significant increases in both maximum force and maximum power, though not in maximum velocity. Additionally, increases in maximum force following training were positively correlated with the initial exercise intensity, and this was determined based on individual body weight. So it was concluded that bodyweight training can be an effective method of training to improve muscle force and power of the lower limbs in elderly individuals. This also showed that initial training status is important for progressive increases in muscle force. This would be an important consideration when helping an individual looking to achieve a training goal with this program. So, a more specific goal that might be accomplished by this program could be to improve muscle function by improving muscle force by 15% over a period of 10 months. Essentially, you would need to look at the starting strength level of an individual. For individuals that are beginning at a higher strength level, intensity of these exercises would need to be increased accordingly. I just wanted to conclude by briefly summarizing the benefits of bodyweight training compared to those of traditional resistance training. So, traditional strength training would be necessary for individuals looking to achieve gains in absolute strength or hypertrophy as their primary goal from training. Bodyweight training alone could have benefits for those with a goal of improving more general physical fitness, and this could encompass improvements in core strength, stability, balance, and flexibility. At the same time, these benefits of bodyweight training could potentially be used to complement a resistance training program. So ideally for somebody that would be looking more on the side of achieving strength gains, bodyweight training would best be used more in conjunction with resistance training rather than a standalone program. However, for populations such as the elderly, where the goal is to improve more of their general physical fitness, it could be used as a standalone program. So how you actually use bodyweight training really depends on the specific personal goals associated with training. but it could be beneficial either way.